They said she could do anything but sit still and behave. Alice Roosevelt, eldest daughter of President Theodore Roosevelt, was born in the gilded halls of privilege, and almost immediately made it her business to upset every chandelier she walked beneath. If society expected her to smile sweetly, sip her tea, and embroider cushions, Alice preferred to sip whiskey, wager on horses, and slip a live snake into her handbag before stepping into the company of senators and dukes. Her humour was razor sharp, the kind that could flay a reputation with a single line, and she knew it. "If you can't say something good about someone," she once declared, "sit right here by me." Washington society was both terrified and spellbound. She had a genius for turning moments of high ceremony into spectacles of mischief. Once, during a formal reception, Alice amused herself by placing bets on horse races, while senators, supposed guardians of the nation's dignity, shifted uneasily nearby, torn between scandal and envy. On another occasion, she shocked White House staff by taking a knife to the carpet in the East Room, cutting out a piece as a personal keepsake, as though the presidential mansion itself were nothing more than her private playhouse. These were not accidents, nor lapses of youthful decorum. They were deliberate provocations, playful acts of rebellion meant to remind the establishment that even the most sacred rituals of American power could be mocked, and mocked well. From her earliest years, Alice seemed to relish the role of mischief maker in a city built on marble dignity. At a time when young women of her rank were meant to represent their family's honor in spotless white gloves, she climbed onto the White House roof to smoke cigarettes, her silhouette outlined against the Washington skyline like a scandal in the making. Reporters lapped it up. She knew they would. She cultivated a performance, a dance with notoriety, always one step ahead of the gasping moralists who found her irresistible. To smoke in public was already daring for a woman of her station. Ladies were expected to feint delicately, not puff defiantly, but to do so on the roof of the White House was a gesture of pure theatre. It was as if Alice had climbed up to declare, "Behold, America, your president's daughter has chosen nicotine over needlework. The papers ate it alive." One columnist quipped that if Congress truly wished to regulate vice, they might start with the president's own offspring. To suffragists, her antics were confusing. Was she a rebellious ally, or a distraction wrapped in cigarette smoke? To traditionalists, she was little less than a national disgrace, a Marlborough manifesto scrawled across the Washington skyline. And to Alice, the entire uproar was delicious. She was not just smoking, she was writing her own headlines in curls of smoke that drifted down over the Capitol. Her nickname, Princess Alice, was meant half in jest, half in reprimand. But the press gave her that crown gladly, and she wore it with sly delight. She understood something crucial about power in the Gilded Age. Money and lineage built the stage, but scandal lit the lamps. So she drove her cars fast, and made sure to do so in full view of the gossip columns. She bet on races as men did, throwing down wagers with a confidence that made even seasoned gamblers blink. She stretched propriety like a piece of silk pulled taut, threatening to tear, but never quite snapping, until it did. Alice's pet snake, Emily Spinach, was her most infamous accessory. She would bring it coiled in her purse to teas, dinners, and receptions. The creature was more than a prop. It was a signal. This was a young woman who would not be tamed by etiquette, nor confined to her role as presidential daughter. She once quipped that Emily was as green as spinach and as thin as my Aunt Emily. That same biting wit, rolled casually off her tongue, became her signature. One did not invite Alice for polite company. One invited her for danger, for unpredictability, for the thrill of sitting too close to the flame. When Alice stepped onto the transatlantic stage, the British aristocracy leaned in with morbid curiosity. Here was America's uncrowned princess, not swathed in dutiful modesty, but striding into drawing rooms with cigarette smoke curling behind her and laughter as sharp as shattered glass. The British tabloids, always eager to sneer at American excess while simultaneously feasting on it, could not look away, and Alice, with her singular instinct for publicity, ensured they never could. Her affairs, if we may call them that, were never simply about love or even lust. They were acts of insurgency. Rumours swirled like champagne bubbles at every dinner party, whispers of trysts with congressmen, foreign envoys, and even a czarist officer or two. Washington insiders swore that she flirted with Nicholas Longworth, an Ohio congressman later to become Speaker of the House, with a charm so reckless it seemed almost like sabotage. When she eventually married him, society wagged its tongue and declared it the most unsurprising surprise in recent memory. Others insisted that her real passions drifted elsewhere, that she was incapable of fidelity, because fidelity was simply too boring a pastime for a Roosevelt. The press, naturally, sharpened their pencils with delight. They hinted, they speculated, they embroidered. A mere conversation across a ballroom floor was elevated into a torrid liaison. A carriage ride at dusk became an assignation fit for French novels. Editors knew well that their readers wanted their princess not draped in lace, but wrapped in scandal. Alice obliged by being seen everywhere with everyone, knowing the ambiguity was half the fun. She was less a woman in love than a director orchestrating her own melodrama, and society willingly purchased tickets. For old money families, these whispers were lethal currency. A daughter's reputation was a bond certificate, securing her family's alliances. Alice shredded hers with a smile. When critics tried to shame her, she responded with wit sharp enough to leave them bleeding. "I can be prim," she once remarked, "but I doubt anyone would believe it." One senator confessed that conversing with her felt like playing chess with a cat. The pieces would vanish, the rules would change, and somehow she always won. What unsettled her contemporaries was not the prospect of Alice actually losing herself in romance. It was that she treated men, and the institutions they represented, as props. Each whispered affair undermined the solemn rituals of courtship and alliance upon which society depended. Aristocratic families across the Atlantic winced at her reputation, but devoured every detail of it in the papers. She had achieved something extraordinary, transforming scandal itself into a form of aristocratic capital. Her affairs, then, were less the stuff of bedrooms than of headlines. And Alice, ever the strategist, understood that rumours, once unleashed, never really die. They coil themselves into memory, like her beloved Emily Spinach in its purse, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This rebellion was not mere caprice. It was theatre, and in theatre, Alice Roosevelt excelled. She played her audience like a violin, knowing exactly how much to reveal, how much to hint at, how much to let them invent on their own. The paradox was irresistible. She was both the president's daughter and society's scandal, a creature of impeccable lineage and reckless appetite. Her contradictions fed the newspapers for decades, and she in turn fed on the attention. Age did not dim Alice Roosevelt. It sharpened her. If in youth she had been the scandalous ingenue, in maturity she became the oracle of Washington's drawing rooms, a power broker armed not with votes or money, but with her tongue. Politicians sought her approval, or at least braced themselves for her ridicule, for an Alice quip could reduce a career to ashes before dessert. She lived long enough to attend the administrations of men who had once been children, when she was already notorious. They, in turn, bowed to her as a living relic, half in reverence, half in terror. She transformed her salons into unofficial courts of influence. Presidents, senators, foreign dignitaries, all found themselves perched on her sofas, desperate for her acceptance, wary of her wit. She spoke in barbed epigrams, phrases that struck like blades dipped in honey. When asked why she attended every political function, she smiled and replied, "Because if I stayed at home, I should know who was here, having fun without me." Washington laughed, and Washington understood that she was not merely joking. She was staking her claim as the capital's eternal observer, judge, and executioner. What fascinated those who knew her was the seamlessness of her transformation. The young rebel who smoked on the White House roof had become the grande dame who presided over the capital's gossip and intrigue. Yet the essence was unchanged. Her rebellion had simply matured into authority. She no longer shocked with cigarettes and fast cars. She shocked with memory, with longevity, with the unnerving knowledge that she had seen everyone's rise and would live to see their fall. To cross Alice was to invite humiliation. To court her was to seek legitimacy. She outlived most of her rivals and many of her friends, surviving until the year 1980. By then, she was less a person than an institution. In the end, Alice Roosevelt was both the spark and the flame, the scandal that ignited gossip and the fire that smouldered long after the Gilded Age was gone. She proved that rebellion could be refined, that audacity could wear pearls, and that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is not the general, the banker, or the president, but a woman with wit, wealth, and no intention of behaving. Alice was not merely a daughter of a president. She was a daughter of America's appetite for spectacle. And when she was finished, she left history with a grin, a cloud of smoke, and the unsettling certainty that the house of old money could always, always be set aflame from within.